She does, and I appreciate this church. I love my church. I love the people here. Y'all have been very special to me and very welcoming. I've been here, I guess, back in August, and was when I officially started, and I've met some of the sweetest and dearest people in here. And I even welcome people that I think that are visitors that are going here. So, but I don't know. And so I'm learning faces and people, and so it's all good. And I'm glad to see what God's doing here, and can't wait to see what else He's going to do, because God's moving here. And I mean, I can see the Spirit, the people that come together and unify, and just, everybody's just so quick to jump on it and just say, what can we do? How can we get these things done? So I appreciate it. Appreciate the music. The music is awesome, and appreciate these guys and girls coming together and singing and preparing our hearts. Music prepares us. The worship prepares our heart for the Word. And we begin to open our hearts to worship and to the Lord. It just opens up an opportunity. I heard a pastor say one time, he said, it's like this. He said, you raise your hands, he said, it's like a funnel. You're just saying, okay, pour in that music, and then come on down with that Word and fill it on in. So I like that. But this morning, I'm going to be preaching a message on out of Luke chapter 10. And the title of this, what I would call this, is Who Will Be Jesus to Our Lost and Dying World? Who's going to be the representation of Jesus when we leave out? When we go out these doors, when we're going to be welcoming as Jesus would into this church? Are we going to take and go out on the streets and exemplify Christ to others? That's what this message is about. And I want to read the story about the Good Samaritan. And behold, a certain lawyer, it's Luke 10:25, and behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, Master, saying, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And he said unto him, what is written in the law, how readest thou? And answering, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And he said unto them, thou answerest right, this do, and shall live. And he, willing to justify himself, said unto Jesus, who is my neighbor? And Jesus answered him, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among the thieves, which was stripped of his raiment, and wounded him, departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked to him, and passed by the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came here where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, bound up his wounds, pouring in oil, wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he had departed, he took up 2 pieces, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay these. When we look at that story about the Good Samaritan, probably about every day or somewhere along the line, we see somebody that we could be the Good Samaritan to. There's people outside these doors of this church that need a Good Samaritan in their life. They need that person that will exemplify Christ in their life, because the world is hurting. You know, they're looking for peace. They're looking for everything else, and nothing is bringing them the satisfaction that they need. But we can be Jesus, as Jesus would to them, and offer that satisfaction to them as we have in our own lives. You know, I think about so many times when I go out and we go up and down the street, I see the homeless man sitting here on the street that says, "Hey, we'll work for food." Or man, that one that's the drunk that's laying down by the side of the road that is begging for help. Maybe to the one that comes in our lives that we can minister to and love on. I think about this story, and one of the things I was reading down in my footnotes here, I have one of the Life's Application Bibles, and there's a footnote, a collection of attitudes about others in need. And it says, to the expert in religious law, the wounded man was a subject to discuss. Gossip. To the thieves, the wounded man was someone to use and exploit. To the religious man, the wounded man was a problem to be avoided. To the innkeeper, the wounded man was a customer to serve for a fee. And to the Samaritan, the wounded man was a human being worth being cared for and loved. And to Jesus, all of us were worth dying for. You know, I look at each one of those different people. It's easy to see somebody out here on the street and see somebody doing things that we may not approve of. And yes, we shouldn't be participating in those things. But, whatever it is. But, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to take and go back home and just start to gossip about it and start talking to others about what we saw? I heard a man one time say this, former pastor. He said, I was going on visitation one night, and he said, we were out visiting, and I saw this drunk man on the side of the road, and he was just stumbling and staggering up through there. And he said, one of the other guys in the back seat looked at him just like, he said, did you see that drunk man? They were just laughing and all that. And the man in the front seat began to cry. And he said, that was me several years ago. And he said, if it wasn't for the Lord, I would still be there today. So we look at people today, and it's easy to be judgmental. It's easy to cast a stone and to throw things at them. Why can we just don't show a little love, a little compassion, and witness to them? Let them know there is hope for their lives. Because it's easy to look back and see these things and see what's going on and always point a finger. You know, there's people that I see many different times, and I'll go to prison a lot. And you know what? I love those guys in prison that I see. I love them. Many of them are Muslim. Many of them are atheists. Many of them are different religions. But I never go up there unless I can show them the love of Christ. I walk across that yard And I mean walking across the yard where they're all gathered around. I don't have a guard or nothing around me. There's guards watching, but I just said, you know, I just want to love on these guys today. I just want to be here and show them Jesus cares about them. You know, I have one of the stories that I remember so well was a story of a friend of mine whose son was killed. And when I was talking to Ron and Cindy one day, they were telling me that they wanted to go meet the guy that killed their son. And they said, I wanted to go meet him because I wanted to tell him one thing, was that I forgave him and I loved him. And they led that young man to the Lord. They could have easily said, oh, just push him off to the side, send him into that cell and let him die. But they came back with a story that, I mean, they said in that scene right there, or in that chapel there was not a dry that was in there, because they had seen a love. They had seen someone minister to somebody that needed Jesus. And you know what? When I go in there, sometimes I have this one guy, and I never will forget. He was in the gang, and I was there with him, and he sat at my table. We were in there doing a little retreat with him, and he sat at my table right beside of me. And I never will forget him because he always told me about how he hated these people over here, or he hated that person over there. And I began to talk to him and begin to minister to him. And there's a time that these guys get to go into a prayer room. And he went to the prayer room that day, and I never will forget, the Lord just really broke him down. And I began to see Jesus come into that room. And I began to see Jesus begin to minister to that young man. And he accepted the Lord. And I never will forget that. And I went back a few days later, and because he was in a gang, they had put him in the hole to lock up. Because if they put these guys back out there on the yard, there's a good chance that they may be killed, because they have denied their gang-related activities, and they are a threat to their gang. And so they put him in the hold, and I went back up there a few days later, and you don't normally get this, but I found favor with the warden. And he said, you can go down there and visit him in his cell. And I thought, Lord, that has to be you, because there's no way that we could ever get in there like that. And I went down there, and here he was in a cell by himself. And I looked, and the only thing he could really have in that cell was his Bible. And he had his Bible open. And he was reading. And I began to pray with him and love on him. And a few weeks later, we got the opportunity to go back up there and baptize him. But you know what? That's God. That's when we take the time and we see, hey, you're worth me telling you about Jesus. We could be that thief, or that one that just wants to just bypass them every day. You see them out here on the street, you just want to bypass them. To the drug addict, what are we going to do? I think about this so many times. Gene has that class on Tuesday nights. And I think about that class so many times, about how many times it's open to anybody. You know, addictions are not only drugs and alcohol. There's a lot of addictions that we can take on in our lives that we don't even realize, hey, we're addicted to these different things. You know what? And that class is for anybody. It's not just for certain drugs, alcohol, or anything like that. It's just open for anybody. I can benefit from that class. You know, there's things, but it's easy to sit back there and judge that addict when the whole time that we have things in our own lives. I have a young man that eventually he'll come. I've been inviting him to church, and he just lives right up the road here. His name's Dustin, and I love Dustin. And when I first saw Dustin, I was kind of a little nervous around him because I didn't know Dustin that well. Dustin's covered in tattoos from head to toe. And I went up there, and one day we were stuck. We went to a retreat with us, and we were down at the beach, and I had a whole week to spend with Dustin. And I never will forget Dustin just looking at me like, "What are you doing talking to me?" You know, I'm the big bad guy. I'm the one that everybody doesn't like to be around. And I began to talk to Dustin, and I began to love on Dustin. And I began to share Jesus with Dustin. And Dustin got saved that week. And the other day, Dustin called me, and he said, "Hey, can I come talk to you?" And I thought, "Yeah, you can come talk to me." And we began to talk, and we began to share about what the Lord was doing. And Dustin was called to the mission field a couple years ago, and he's studying to go on to be a missionary. And they were studying there, but you know, there's struggles, there's ways that the enemy will come in and try to attack and try to stop those things in their track. But the thing about it is, what if we bypass those people and just overlook them? There's a lady I know right now that she struggled with, she was afraid to even tell anybody about her pregnancy because she was an unwedded mother. And she would come around, and I would watch the people there at the theater just reach out and begin to love on her. She's 14 years old, getting ready to have a baby. I can't imagine. But here she was, and she's afraid to tell anybody because of what people think, of what people will judge her, and how people will look at her and say, "Well, look at her. She's just a girl that doesn't care about her life. And she's giving up anything she can to get some attention." And people look at that. But I remember we began to love on that girl there at the theater, and and begin to share Jesus with her. They gave her a shower. They treated her just like they would treated another pregnant mother. And the girls began to love on her and begin to minister to her. And that girl still comes around to the theater. I don't know where she is with the Lord right now, but she'll come every once in a while back to the theater, and she'll bring that little boy with her. He's now about 4 or 5 years old, and she's raising him along with the help of her grandparents, her parents. She's raising him. It could have been very easy for us to said to. She could have said, "Well, nobody cares. I'll just go do this abortion." Very easy to have said that. And we preach against abortion. And we teach against abortion. But why don't we become Jesus to that lady? Show her that, hey, we'll be here to help you raise that child. We'll give you showers. We'll take and help you with your diapers. We'll take and do this and do that for you, because she could have very easily went right down there to the abortion clinic and had it done in no time. But now she's got a little boy that she's raising. So many people are going through different things in life, and we look at life and we think about people that are less fortunate than us. In the book of Matthew 25 through, or hang on, I gave you the wrong one. Book of Luke, no, Matthew 25, 35 through 40. I want us to look at this scripture here, and Jesus is talking about doing these things unto people. And he says, beginning in verse 35, he says, "For I was hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer unto him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee a hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took therein, and naked, and clothed thee? And when we saw we sick, and in prison, and came unto thee? And the king shall answer unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these, you have done it unto me." You know, I think about that. How are we showing Jesus in our lives to other people that are less fortunate than us? I'm thankful for this church, for Gene and the ministry that they've got over there of feeding people that are less fortunate than we are. It may be us one day. I may have to go over there one day. I don't know. I may have to go over there and say, Gene, can you fix me a food box? I've lost my job. Gene, can you help me out with some groceries, with some furniture, with whatever the clothes that are there? You know what? They are the hands and feet of Jesus when they are standing over there serving other people. Pat's over there, and all the other, who? Shirley, they're over there, and I'm bad about names, but they're over there and they're serving, and they're setting up tents. They're doing everything that they can to try to make sure those needs are met. They're having garage sales. They're having these things. And people come and need those things. I was over there one day. Pat called me and she said, will you come over here one Wednesday night? Jean wasn't here. And she said, I need some help. She said, somebody has left a lot of stuff on the porch that we need to get in. And we went over there, and there was clothes, there was all kinds of different things that was left there on that porch to go out and serve somebody else, to clothe somebody else that wasn't as fortunate as we are. You know, the other day last Sunday, I had a little bit of time in between church services, and I stay over here in Kingsport area when I'm here on Sunday, and a lot of times I'll just hang out in my office or wherever, but that day I decided, I said, I'm going to go by the Goodwill. And I went by the Goodwill, and the Goodwill has a lot of clothes that are nice, that you can wear. This suit coat I got for 99 cents last week. And I'm so excited about this suit coat. I couldn't wear it. Couldn't wait to wear it today. Because when I went over there, the lady said, I said, this doesn't have a tax. She said, oh no, today's our 99-cent sale. She said, everything's 99 cents. And I went over there and I said, well, let me go get me another one. So I went and got me another one. And they both looked like they hadn't even been worn. And I said, you know what? God uses those places. He feeds. He takes and touches people's lives. And they donate and they give. And I know they sell it. But you know what? A lot of people can't go to Hartsville. A lot of people can't go to Walmart. A lot of people can't go to different places. But they may be able to come up with 99 cents. So they're being exemplifying Jesus. I don't know much about them other than just what they do there, but by selling clothes and stuff. But you know what? There's places out there that are reaching out to these people. We've got places here in our town right now that are feeding. Shades of Grace. I love what they do. I've not really done much with them, but I've talked to them. And the gentleman told me one day, his name's Reverend Will. He's the one that heads that up there. And he said, we feed them. We don't care whether they're whatever. We let them come in. And we feed them. And we'll have a devotion. And we'll have a time when we can share Jesus with those people. And people will come and fill that place. And they're sitting there sharing Jesus with them. These places that are doing these things, we need to get behind them. We need to say, hey, how can we help? We're looking at areas, how can we help? And it's not always money. Maybe it's just a little bit of your time that says, hey, I'm going to go down here and help serve a meal to these people. Or, hey, I just want to spend a little bit of time with this man and love on him and care for him, because most of those people feel rejected by society because they're less fortunate than us. Tomorrow we could lose it all. We could lose it all. And we could be in the same shape as they are. But we look at these people and we got to be Jesus. And when Jesus said this to these people, he said, when you did this unto them, you had done it just as unto me. So it's like you're serving Jesus when you're going out there. You're serving Jesus. I never want a time, and I know that this church wouldn't, that we have somebody come to this door that maybe has a stench to them because they haven't been able to bathe, or they're homeless on the street, and they walk through that door, that we may have an opportunity to love on them and care for them. The alcoholic that we know that probably on Saturday night he was drunk with us all get out, but comes to church over here on Sunday morning, an opportunity to be Jesus too. The drug addict. We know he's a drug addict, and you may know that, and you may not know that. But opportunity to minister. Opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus to that man or that woman. There was a man that wrote a song several years ago, and I never will forget this song. And I don't know whether any of y'all know who Bruce Carroll is. It was several years ago that he wrote this song. And it says this, and it says, who will be Jesus? He says he came home from work last night to find that she's gone. Now he's spending his first Sunday sitting in the pew alone. There are whispers all around him, and his heart breaks in his truth. He's wondering who will reach out to him and help him make it through. The next verse says, she has a reputation like the woman at the well. The only love she ever knew was the kind she buy and sell. But her thirsty heart is searching for a love that can be true. The Savior cries out to her and sees himself in me and you. Who will be Jesus to her? Who will be Jesus to him? You know what? That's our time that we have the greatest opportunity to show Jesus to those people. To show Jesus to those people. Loving people where they're at and exemplifying Jesus to them. You know, so many times I hear people and they say, man, they're just an old drug addict or they're just an old alcoholic. You know what? Where did Jesus find us? Where were we at? Where were we at? You know, I could have been that one that the Lord just said, or that y'all just said, oh, just push him aside. He's no good. He's got issues. He's got problems. He's got things that we don't want to deal with. But I remember where the Lord found me. And it wasn't. I wasn't a pretty sight at the time. But I know what Jesus did for me. And I always try to remember when I see somebody that is less fortunate than me, don't care whether they're alcoholic, whether they're a drug addict, whether whatever it is, I will go and minister to them because I don't care, because I want to be, not to build my chain or to pull my chain, but I want to see others come to know the Lord. And I want to tell them, hey, there's hope for you. There's someone that loves you and cares about you. How can I help you? How can I show you Jesus? Now, I know there's people out there that say, well, y'all didn't give me no money because my this and that. Instead, let me tell you something. It's not all about money. And you'll hear people say, well, that church down the road there, they don't really care about us because we went to them and they didn't give us no money. Well, let us give you some food. Let us give you some clothes. We may not have money to give. But how can we help you in another way? Can I feed you? Can we take and do something for you in another sense? But you know what? The ministry that you share with others, I'm going to tell you something. It won't come back void, because it may be that night when they're laying there in the bed that they're sitting there thinking, you know, man, those people must really love me because they fed me. Those people must really love me because they showed me Jesus. And I need to give my life to Jesus. I told this story to a man just the other day. And it's one of my patients there at work. And his dad came to me and he was all crying and upset. His son had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. His son was an alcoholic. And his son didn't know Jesus. And I asked that man, I said, hey, do you think he'd talk to me? Do you think I could go over and talk to him? And I went over and talked to that young man, and I shared with him Jesus. Now, I'd like to tell you that he accepted Jesus that day. But his blood's not on my hand. I did what I was supposed to do. But another came by a few days later, and he got saved. And yesterday morning at 8 a.m., that young man passed away and went home to be with Jesus. His dad called me and he said, He passed away this morning. I went Friday night to see him in the hospital. And I got to talk to his daughters, who probably knew their dad as the alcoholic, who probably knew their dad as the one that probably didn't care. But I told them, I said, girls, I want to tell you something. I said, your daddy got saved. And your daddy's ready to meet Jesus. What if we hadn't have been the hands and feet of Jesus? That man could have died lost. And I'm not pulling my chain. Don't you think that. No, no, no. It all goes back to God. But what if we ignore it and bypass it? What an opportunity it could have been that we could have showed Jesus to somebody else that doesn't know him. I'm going to ask Penny to come on up and get ready. I hope that you've got something out of this and that the Lord showed you something. Just some areas to look at. Some areas to just look at and think, hey, how can I be the hands and feet of Jesus to that man or that woman out there? How can we do that? We got kids here that need us to love them. Need us to care about them. Because we got to show them Jesus. I know sometimes we get aggravated and we say, oh, I wish I'd settle down. Yeah, I do too. But I think, how about if I just pulled them off to the side and just say, hey, come over here and sit with me for a few minutes and just begin to love on them and care for them. I mean, I don't think we should let them be disobedient and run around here like whatever, but I think we should be willing to give a little bit of time and share Jesus with that kid. Because that impact that you leave on that child will go a long way. It'll go a long way. We just need to be Jesus. I'm going to open up the front, and if you want to come and pray, maybe you just need the Lord just to show you how you can be Jesus. Maybe to your own family. Maybe to your neighbor that you fought with and you bickered and fought with for all the time. Maybe you just need to say, hey, I just need to go over there and show him Jesus. So just think about it. Just bow your heads, and anybody wants to come and pray, the altars are open. You're here and you don't know Jesus, the altars are open.